As I pointed out in the post that I put out today on Instagram and YouTube, we will forever be appreciative that Tim Pool had Jen on his show. It was an experience, going out to his compound and meeting his crew and all that. But the fact of the matter is, the guy figured out a mousetrap that made him a wealthy man. And he's not going to allow that to be compromised in any way. And that will include giving up his integrity, which he has done more than one occasion or two, especially if you're given the opportunity to interview the president of the United States, if you're given the opportunity to basically have a platform that garners anywhere from 50 to 60,000 live stream viewers at a time, to a point in which he once had Kanye West and Milos and Alex Jones. I mean, there was points where he had 200,000 live viewers at one time. You know what kind of money that is, guys? I don't think you understand how serious this is. So it's not entirely surprising that when the one story comes out that Tim, along with Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin, who really hates Jen with a passion of 1,000.
I don't even know. Who's Dave Rubin? Like, who is that?
You don't want to know. He's
okay.
just.
But he hates me?
Oh, he hates you.
That's so funny. He doesn't even, I don't even know who he is.
He really hates you because he's a sellout. He's a Shapiro butt buddy. He sold out for the Israel lobby.
Oh, is he the guy that's like a self-loathing gay man?
Yes, that's him.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I think I know. But and he hates me. Well, you mean he hates your posts? He doesn't know me. He's never probably seen me.
No, because when it comes to the issue of Israel, he has specifically called you out on his show and on social media for being a self-loathing Jew. Yeah, you're a self-loathing Jew, Jen. And you're a dumbass. Don't forget that as well.
Well, I've been told in this thing I'm dumb as a box of rocks, but he said my name on his show.
Oh, he don't like you one bit, Jen.
That's so cool. All right. Anyway, continue.
But Kim Iversen decided to do a deep dive. And again, we've addressed it before. Remember, there was a Russian-based conglomerate that spent $100,000 a month or gave $100,000 a month in compensation to the substantially large conservative platforms. Yes, Tim Pool, you do run a conservative platform. You may claim you're not a conservative, but your audience definitely is very pro-Trump, very pro-conservative. No two ways about it. And so that channel got a lot of traction. So did Benny Johnson's, and so did Dave Rubin's. And these guys got a lot of money. Do you think that was the end of the story? Of course not. And here's Kim Iversen breaking it down when it came to the issue of Israel.
So this should alarm you, because this wasn't just a conversation. It was a controlled environment curated by a foreign government with the explicit purpose of shaping how you, the audience, see the world. And the people who agreed to this meeting weren't diplomats. They weren't intelligence analysts. They weren't even traditional journalists. They were independent journalists and influencers, the people you trust because you believe they aren't controlled. And now they are. So what is the Chatham House rule? So let's pause and explain exactly what this rule is, because the devil is in the details and most people have never even heard of it. So the Chatham House rule was created in 1927 by the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London, aka the Chatham House. It was designed to encourage open, honest dialogue during times of war or diplomacy or instability. So here's the official definition. When a meeting or part thereof is held under the Chatham House rule, participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers nor that of any other participant may be revealed. So let's break that down into plain English. You can repeat what was said, but you can't say who said it or where they work or where they're from or that they were even in the room. So the idea was that people could speak honestly without getting fired or starting a war or causing a scandal. Now that makes sense for high stakes diplomacy, like two countries trying to stop a war without alarming their citizens. But here's the catch. This wasn't a peace summit. This was a foreign government talking to YouTubers behind closed doors. That's not diplomacy. That's message control. So here's the hard truth. The Chatham House rule was never meant to be used by journalists or commentators or anyone whose whole brand is, I tell you what the establishment won't. Because the second someone in media agrees to keep a source secret, not for safety, but for strategy, they stop being a watchdog and they become a guard dog.
I'm sorry. Is she saying that Tim Pool suggested that the Chatham House rules apply to him?
Not only that, but apparently, like I said, the talking point that he started going with when it came to the issue of Israel and what was going on in Gaza is people are not really against Israel. It's a bunch of bot farms based in Qatar that are putting this out there, and people are just going along with it because they simply don't understand. How in the hell can you ever square this circle knowing that, and I believe this is part of the clip, where Tim admits that he did.
All right, so let's get to that part. Like, this is kind of like long drawn out explanation of Chatham House rules.
And that's exactly what happened here. Now, according to reporting from the Jewish Insider, which, by the way, Tim Pool called fake news while also admitting it was mostly accurate, this closed-door meeting happened at Blair House, which is the official guest house of the U.S. president, right across from the White House. So who was in the room? On the influencer side, you have Tim Pool, prominent YouTuber, Dave Rubin, also a prominent YouTuber, former press secretary Sean Spicer, editor-in-chief of The Federalist Molly Hemingway, Bethany and Seth Mandel, who both write for the New York Post and Washington Examiner.
Okay, Bethany and Seth Mandel are also two Zionist scumsuckers who live in Florida, and they have.
Wait, those are Mandels from down here? Because I know Mandels here and New York Mandel.
Bethany wrote an article about you in her, I think it was in Haaretz, if I'm not mistaken.
She wrote about me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
This is the best. Okay, continue.
Mommy blogger Jessica Krause and host of Newsmax, David J. Harris Jr. And on the Israeli side, you have Netanyahu himself, his top diplomatic advisor, and the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. No cameras, no transcripts, just a government, a message, and a room full of people who control what millions of Americans see online. So what was the topic? Well, the goal was to address the growing anti-Israel backlash in right-wing media, especially among pro-Trump populist and Gen Z influencers who are watching footage from Gaza and beginning to question everything.
And that is the crux of the entire conversation.
So basically, now you're going to, so Netanyahu's just getting little people on his team, little soldiers like Tim Pool, to go push out the propaganda narrative because we can't have people seeing the truth.
I mean, especially somebody like Dave Rubin, especially somebody like, listen, we haven't even gotten to Ben Shapiro, who's the most guilty party of them all. And obviously Tim Pool. If you've proven time and again that you're a corporate whore, then who cares? And we have the authority to say this. You know why? Because we do have friends in conservative media. We do talk to them, and they are good people. They've been on our show. We've been on theirs. Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and especially Ben Shapiro are not conservative commentators. They are corporate whores that have no social or political or even economic standing because they don't stand for anything. They stand for their corporate special interest, which is why, as smart as Ben Shapiro tries to make himself out to be, this is a guy who, keep in mind, just a couple of weeks ago suggested that talking about the Kennedy assassination is not worth talking about anymore because it's not important.
Because it happened so long ago.
Could you be more guilty? Could you try to prove that you know that the Mossad was involved in Kennedy's assassination? I don't know. Keep trying because you're really good at it, pal. So let's finish this out.
So according to multiple attendees, including Tim, he raised the possibility that Qatar might be manipulating social media algorithms to push anti-Semitic or anti-Israel content. Let's watch what he says about that.
I said there has been a report released from pro-Israel sources alleging Qatar is funding bots and operations to promote anti-Israel content. Is there any evidence that's true? And he said, I don't know. It's possible. That's what happened. I did not say they actually were doing that because I don't know that they're actually doing it. However, I did, to a variety of people, express what I've expressed on this show, that there are clearly bots that are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. That is not to say that people who are critical of Israel don't exist or that no one is critical of Israel. People certainly are.
Okay, so in other words, maybe the outrage isn't real. Maybe it's bots. And Netanyahu's answer was, it's possible, which was just enough to plant the seed in all of these influencers to get the word out there. So think about what just happened. A foreign leader met with a group of influential American voices. They agreed not to say who said what. They left that meeting and started repeating the key ideas without telling their audiences where those ideas came from. That's not independent media. That's PR. That's narrative laundering. It's taking talking points from the top of a foreign power structure and repackaging them as grassroots, authentic thought. This story matters because it strikes at the core of what people believe about alternative media. These guys are rebels. They don't take orders. They don't play the DC game. They're not CNN in a hoodie. But guess what? The moment power invited them in, they showed up. They sat down. They listened. They took notes. And now they're feeding you the exact messages the government wanted them to deliver without telling you where those messages came from.
But that's not the problem, is that people are going to just believe it without any evidence. I saw somebody in the chat saying something about what's with the beanie. And I want to tell you something about Tim Pool's beanie. Like, because I remember What?
So this is a big reveal, Jen. Not a lot of people know this. So everybody always has wondered, because they never, ever, ever get to see Tim Pool without his beanie on. Well, Jen, why don't you tell people what happened when you were right after we went off the air?
I asked him, I'm like, do you ever take it off? He's like, no. He didn't take it off.
He did.
No, he didn't.
He most certainly took it off for you for like 2 seconds. I remember.
Are you sure?
Well, I most certainly do.
Was he just very balding? Was it just very balding?
So he basically has just like specks of hair on his head.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
like,
Now I'm remembering. That's right. So I asked. Yeah. He did very quickly. Yeah.
But why would you, like, to me, why, he would actually look, I'm not trying to give him any clues here, but if he just like grew out the beard and just shaved the head and just he could pull that look off. Like I think
this is all so beside the point. So basically we have very big influencers just falling in line with the Zio state. So it's kind of like same old, really. How is that different? Now that's who they have to pay to get their message out, because the mainstream media is tanking with their numbers so badly that they can't rely on CNN and MSNBC anymore. They have to go into the independent media spaces. And God forbid, they can't get a control over TikTok.
Well, think of it this way. Do you think it pays financially for, let's say, and we're gonna hold on the Stop Anti-Semitism clip with James Lee until Lee gets here. But do you think it's really that much of a stretch to suggest that these conglomerates that, let's say, contribute mightily to CNN, Time Warner, don't feel that Jake Tapper, for example, is a good messenger for the Israel cause, and they feel that somebody like Tim Pool is worth more money? I think it's just as simple as that, really. I
think it's just they're hedging their bets. They do it all. Just like how corporate donors pay for Congress people in both parties. Somebody like Netanyahu is going to go get any support anywhere he can. I mean, this is someone who has to have a special flight path because he can't fly over certain countries for fear that they might have to stop and he would be arrested. So, this is, this is not somebody who isn't thinking through things. So he has planned. I mean, this is just basically, those are the low hanging fruit. Whoever sat down in a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in any serious capacity, as if he wouldn't just be lying as every time he opens his mouth. Anybody who would sit down with him isn't a serious person. You're not a serious person, because nothing that he says is true. So the fact that you would even consider repeating anything he says is you're just not serious.
Well, it's a very good point that you bring up, because I read a little bit earlier, you guys may have seen it on social media, but evidently when Netanyahu had to leave the U.S., he had to change his flight path by over 250 miles in order to avoid flying into airspace where he could have been diverted and arrested. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty serious shit.
Oh, this is where, I have a kind of a different theory right now on what he's up to. I really think he's kind of doing like suicide by complete implosion of country. It's almost like he knows he's going down one way or another, because he is, let's be real, regardless of what happens, he's not coming out of this, right? Like whether it's with his own people hating him, the civil unrest, the IDF soldiers coming with PTSD, like in the thousands that isn't being reported, the economy's in the shit, like all of that, right? He's not getting out of this. And so it's almost like, because he's sitting there and has always been provoking this war with Iran. We want to get at Iran. And it's only really been recently that now when you poke at Iran, they're going to poke Israel back. So I think that if we were to attack Iran like he wants us to, they're just going to take out Israel. If we level Iran, they're taking Israel with them. And I think that Netanyahu must know this. Because again, I think he's disgusting, but he's not stupid. So he knows that that's possible. So because I can't imagine that he thinks that we're just going to take out Iran and Israel will just continue expanding like nothing happened. He knows better. So, and he knows his time is limited. So I'm starting to think that like he's on a suicide mission.